I had just dropped off a birthday gift, an expensive silk scarf I couldn't really afford, when I heard my dad laugh and say, "Once the trust fund's stable, we won't need her anymore." They didn't know I was standing right outside the door. After 10 years of paying their bills, skipping my vacations, and covering for my brother's mistakes, they were planning to cut me off. "Hi, I'm Rachel. I used to think being the responsible daughter meant I was loved. But that night, I realized I was just their ATM with an expiration date. What would you do if your own family plotted behind your back like that? Would you confront them or walk away quietly? Let me know, because this story isn't just about betrayal. It's about finally choosing yourself. I used to think that being dependable meant I was loved. That love came in the form of thank you notes, warm hugs, or even just someone asking if I was okay. But over time, I learned something else. Love doesn't come with invoices. And I had enough receipts to wallpaper my apartment. It was raining again in Seattle, the kind of slow, steady drizzle that slipped under your coat and made your bones feel older than they were. I sat at my tiny kitchen table, the one I bought secondhand for $40, staring at my laptop screen. The online banking portal blinked back at me, asking if I was sure. Of course I was sure. I always was. I transferred $6,300 to my parents' joint account. It was for my dad's latest cardiology bill, angioplasty follow-up scans, prescription blood thinners. Out of pocket, Mom had said, like, she didn't know I'd already memorized their deductible. The confirmation pinged, and I closed the browser. My fridge hummed behind me. Inside it was a forgotten half carton of eggs, a takeout container of soggy pad see ew, and a nearly empty bottle of oat milk. Thanksgiving was in a week. My coworkers talked about trips to wine country or hosting Friendsgivings. I had reheated stuffing from Trader Joe's and a paper turkey taped to the office break room wall. I grabbed the canvas tote I kept by the door, filled with groceries I'd picked up for my parents: low-sodium soup, almond milk, fiber cereal, the brand of tea my mother insisted helped her sleep. The roads were slick with rain as I pulled into their driveway, the porch light flickering. "Rachel," Mom called as I walked in without knocking. "You're such a lifesaver." She hugged me briefly, already turning back toward the kitchen. Ethan was on the couch, eyes glued to the TV, fingers dancing across a controller. A sports game, or maybe some fantasy shooter. I stopped trying to tell the difference years ago. "Hey," I offered. He didn't look up. "Hey." I put the grocery bag on the counter. Mom was humming, unloading a dishwasher that looked brand new. The old one had just stopped working, and I'd footed the bill for the replacement. Somehow that was months ago, and I was still paying off the credit card. "I got your ginger tea," I said. She lit up. "You're an angel. Ethan, did you see? Your sister got the good kind, the one from Whole Foods?" He shrugged. Mom gave me a soft smile. "He's really focusing lately, brainstorming for this new app idea. You know he's got such potential." I didn't say anything, just nodded. She poured herself a mug of tea. "He's trying, sweetheart. Be patient. Not everyone finds their path at the same time." I bit the inside of my cheek and smiled the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. "Sure." I left not long after saying I had laundry to finish. Mom packed me a Tupperware container of stew I knew I'd forget in the back of my fridge. Back home, I microwaved some leftovers, the pad see ew stew from 3 nights ago. I ate it standing up, fork scraping the cardboard container. I didn't turn on the TV or the lights. Just the kitchen lamp buzzed quietly, casting a warm yellow circle across my tax folders and unopened mail. My phone buzzed. "Maya, hey," she said when I answered. "I just got off work. Want to come over? I've got wine and those peanut butter cookies you like." I looked at the stack of unfolded laundry, the sink with 2 bowls, the unopened email from my boss about holiday coverage. "I can't," I said. "Laundry night. And I've got a few things to finish for work." She paused. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied. "Really." We hung up. I sat on the floor in my living room and opened the medical Carter folder. Paper receipts, PDFs, EOB statements. I filed the latest cardiology payment in a fresh sleeve protector. I counted through the years with my fingers. 10, almost 11. My emergency savings sat at $804.22. I had a car note, an overdue dental cleaning, and a stomach that hadn't stopped aching since August. I leaned back, rubbing my temples. That's when the notification chimed. New email from Gregory Carter. Subject, quick ask. I opened it. Any chance we can up the monthly amount a bit? New meds aren't covered. Appreciate you, Rach. I stared at the screen. No. How are you? No thanks for the groceries. Just more need, more expectation. I should have been used to it. But that night, the message felt different. Like the floor had shifted a half-inch under my feet. Somewhere in the apartment, the heater kicked on. Warm air flowed through the vents too late to make the room feel any less cold. The scarf was silk, a pale shade of lavender that reminded me of spring crocuses. It had cost more than I could justify, but I'd folded it carefully into tissue paper, tied it with a silver ribbon, and tucked a handwritten note inside. Happy birthday, Mom. I saw this and thought of you immediately. Love, Rachel. I wasn't sure if she'd even remember mentioning she liked that color. It was a surprise drop-in, something spontaneous, at least that's what I told myself. I wasn't expecting a party or a big hug. I just wanted to leave the gift, maybe have a short chat, and go home. The porch light was on, casting an amber halo over the front step. I could hear laughter inside, bright and easy. The front door was ajar. I reached for the handle, then paused when I heard voices. Dad's low and rough, Ethan's higher, more animated. I held still not out of curiosity at first, but politeness. Then I caught my name. She actually offered to help with the startup costs, Ethan said, laughing. Can you believe that I mentioned the name, and she lit up like it was the next Tesla? Dad chuckled, a sound like gravel sliding down a hill. That's what she's there for, isn't it? She's good at making money. Let her do what she's good at. My fingers froze around the doorknob. Yeah, well, Ethan continued, I'm booking Bali next week. Figured I might as well enjoy life before I'm stuck running a business. You deserve it, son, Dad said. She canceled her little getaway last month, didn't she? Said it was too expensive. Meanwhile, we're setting you up right, and once the trust fund's matured, we won't need her anymore. Trust fund. My chest tightened. I leaned back, pressing myself against the wall near the doorframe. A gust of wind caught the hem of my coat, but I didn't move. Ethan scoffed. Just make sure she doesn't find out. I mean, the woman still thinks the account is for emergency expenses. She'd probably stroke out if she knew how much was sitting there. Dad lowered his voice. By the time it comes up, Derek will have everything moved into new holdings. Clean and simple, and she'll sign whatever he puts in front of her. She always does. Derek, my ex-boyfriend, the one who had insisted I combine finances, who said managing my investments was the least he could do. We broke up amicably, so I thought. He'd always been close with my father, but I'd never connected the dots. My heart pounded as I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. The shared account they insisted I keep it open for convenience for emergencies loaded slowly like it knew what was coming. $127, $843.42. All those payments, all the hospital bills, groceries, home repairs, insurance. It was all here, sitting, growing, for him. I stared at the screen. My hands didn't shake. They should have, but they didn't. I selected the balance, hit transfer, chose my personal savings account. A confirmation window popped up, transfer entire balance. Yes, please wait, done. I left exactly $5.73 in the joint account, just enough to give them false hope when the next bill came due. The door creaked behind me. I didn't wait to hear more. I turned walking silently back to my car. The wind had picked up. It carried the scent of wet leaves and chimney smoke. My heels clicked against the driveway in a steady rhythm. As I reached the car door, my phone buzzed. Mom, can we talk about increasing next month's transfer? Property tax is going up again? The scarf was still in my hand. I looked at it, perfect, soft, gentle. I'd spent a full hour choosing the color. I'd told the cashier it was for my mother, and she'd smiled and said, "She's lucky to have you." No, I thought, wrapping the scarf tighter in the ribbon. She's lucky I haven't vanished. I slid into the driver's seat scarf, still unopened in my lap. I stared at the text on my phone. My thumbs hovered for a moment over the keyboard, then I locked the screen. The car interior was dark and cold. I didn't turn on the engine right away. I just sat there listening to the faint echo of laughter from inside the house. My house, really. At least a third of it by my rough calculations. That night, something inside me calcified. Not shattered, there was no drama to it. No tears. Just a long, slow freezing of something I hadn't realized was still soft. I'd spent 10 years believing loyalty was enough. That being useful earned me a seat at the table. But I wasn't family. I was a tool, a resource, an account number. And I had just closed the tab. They said I was overreacting, that I was too sensitive, that I always took things so personally. But I'd spent a decade documenting everything: emails, texts, invoices, transfer receipts. It wasn't paranoia. It was bookkeeping. I just hadn't known what I was keeping it for. The table in my apartment was covered in folders, now color-coded tabs fluttering like little flags. Green for health expenses. Blue for mortgage support. Yellow for temporary contributions, Mom's phrase, her handwriting looping across Post-its like a child's. Red for anything that smelled off documents with missing signatures, vague repayment promises vaguer timelines. Thai takeout sat untouched on the counter. Maya stood in the kitchen staring at me like I'd just grown wings or fangs. "Rachel," she said finally, "this is a lot," I nodded, flipping open another binder. 10 years of a lot. She moved slowly toward the table, eyes scanning the rows of highlighted dates and cross-referenced bank statements. "You kept everything. You asked me once why I did," I said, glancing up. I said it was just a habit. Maya gave a low whistle. Turns out it was survival. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable, just full. Full of disbelief, of growing anger, of old assumptions melting away. I pulled out a white envelope slightly bent at the corners. Inside was a document with my father's signature twice, actually. Once on the front page, once next to a sentence that read, "All family loans will be repaid upon stabilization of household income." That was from 2017, I said. After I covered the second roof repair. Maya's jaw tightened. "And they never paid you back for that? Not a cent?" She stood up and paced the room, hands on her hips. "You need a lawyer, like now." I paused. I don't even know what kind of lawyer this falls under. Probate, maybe, or financial elder abuse, but in reverse. She stopped pacing. "Actually, I know someone. Joanna Blake. She's brilliant, no nonsense. She helped my aunt untangle her ex-husband's will. I'll text her right now." I hesitated. "She's trustworthy," Maya added. "And she doesn't charge for the first consultation." I nodded slowly. "Okay, set it up." The next afternoon, Joanna Blake arrived at my apartment precisely at 2. She was tall, probably in her late 40s, with silver-streaked hair tied back in a braid and a leather briefcase that looked older than me. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She asked for tea, took one look at the paperwork on the table, and got to work. For the next 90 minutes, I walked her through it all, what I knew, what I suspected, what I'd overheard. She took notes on a tablet, barely blinking. When I was finished, she sat back and steepled her fingers. "This isn't just betrayal," she said quietly. "This is financial abuse." My throat tightened. Even though I'd said the words to myself the night before, hearing it aloud made it real. "I can't say what will come of it without further investigation," Joanna continued. "But you're not overreacting. You're not imagining things. They've been structuring this for years." She tapped on her screen. "By the way, did you know there's a life insurance policy in your name?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" It popped up in the shared financials. "Taken out last year. Your brother is the sole beneficiary." My stomach dropped. "They're paying the premiums," she said gently. "Using the trust account." "Your money." I couldn't speak. I stared at the wall behind her, trying to remember if I'd ever signed anything. I didn't think I had. "I'll need to dig further," Joanna said. "But this complicates things. Significantly." I nodded, slowly numb. Later that night, after Joanna had gone and Maya had insisted on cleaning up despite my protests, I collapsed onto the couch with a blanket and my laptop. My inbox was full: work reminders, promotional spam, another payment confirmation from my bank, and one message near the bottom made my blood run cold. From Derek Lawson, subject: "Hey stranger, been thinking of you. Coffee sometime. Would love to catch up." I stared at it. Maya, who was finishing off the Thai food I'd never touched, looked over. When I turned the screen toward her, she narrowed her eyes. "No way." "Seriously," I nodded. "He's in on it. I'm sure of it. What are you going to do?" I looked back at the message. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed, "Sure, let's talk," and hit send. They built a castle out of my sacrifices, brick by brick, bill by bill, and now I was here to collect what was mine. From behind the tinted glass of the observation room, I watched them arrive. Gregory, in his tailored navy suit, looking like he still ran board meetings instead of barely managing his cholesterol. Susan wore pearls and denial, her expression wobbling somewhere between anxious and offended. Ethan had sunglasses on indoors, thumbs dancing over his phone, smug as ever. A family portrait if you squinted hard enough. Joanna stood at the head of the long conference table, calm and coiled like a waiting spring. She didn't offer greetings. Instead, she opened the leather folder in front of her and spread out the contents. "Let's begin." They didn't notice me through the glass. I wasn't ready to be seen. Not yet. Joanna's voice carried through the room's discreet speaker system. "We have documentation 10 years' worth of transactions, emails, and statements, all leading to the same conclusion: misappropriation of funds and deliberate concealment," Gregory scoffed. "This is absurd." Joanna didn't flinch. She slid a printed email across the table. "You called her contributions bridge money. Temporary. But the deposits never stopped. And the repayment you promised?" She tapped a highlighted section. "Never materialized." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "This is family business. You're blowing it out of proportion." "She canceled her vacation to cover your overdraft," Joanna replied coolly. "While you were in Cancun." Susan's voice cracked. "We just wanted what was best for everyone. We thought she understood." Joanna placed a new set of papers on the table. "These are the life insurance documents. Rachel's name. Ethan listed as sole beneficiary. Premiums paid out of a trust account built from her money. No consent, no disclosure. That's not what's best. That's fraud." Silence settled for a moment. Ethan's smirk faded. Gregory's jaw clenched. Susan sniffed. "It was never supposed to be permanent. Just until things stabilized." "That was 8 years ago," Joanna said. Gregory slammed a palm on the table. "So what?" She was helping. That's what family does. And this is what family does. Joanna pulled out a small recorder and hit play. Derek's voice filled the room, calm and confident. "She won't even notice. She signs whatever Gregory sends her. Trust me, she's too busy taking care of everyone else." Gregory's face blanched. "That's enough," he barked. "We want to speak to Rachel." "This is a witch hunt. She's not here," Joanna said. "But she's been watching. That was my cue." I stepped out of the observation room and into the conference space. 3 sets of eyes turned to me, 4 if you counted the stunned blink of Ethan behind his lenses. "I'm here," I said. Susan gasped. "Rachel?" I walked slowly, deliberately, taking a seat beside Joanna without acknowledging them. My voice was steady. "You always said family takes care of each other. I just didn't realize I was the caretaker, not the family." Gregory stood up. "You have no right to ambush us like this." I leaned forward. "No, let's talk about rights, like the right to know when a life insurance policy is taken out in your name, or when your money funds someone else's future while you can't afford new tires." Joanna slid a final stack of papers across the table. "You have 2 choices." She raised one hand, counting off. 1, you sign a full confession, transfer all assets back to Rachel, agree to a no-contact order, walk away with your reputations barely intact. She lifted her second hand. 2, we proceed with civil and criminal charges, tax evasion, insurance fraud, financial abuse. The press will be notified. And the IRS, of course." Susan began to cry. Ethan cursed under his breath. Gregory stared at me. "You'd really do this to your own family?" I didn't blink. "You already did it to me. I'm just finishing what you started." The silence was thick. Outside, a plane passed overhead, its low rumble barely muffled. Gregory sat down slowly. He looked at the papers, then at Susan, then finally at Ethan, and he signed. 1 page, then another, and another. Susan wiped her tears, her hand shaking as she added her name to the final page. Ethan hesitated. "This is extortion," he muttered. "No," Joanna said. "This is accountability." With a grunt, he scrawled his signature. I didn't thank him. I didn't need to. Joanna gathered the papers. "We'll file these today. Your accounts will be frozen until the transfers are complete. I recommend you begin seeking legal representation for your own tax exposure." They stood stiff and quiet. As they reached the door, Gregory turned. "You're no longer our daughter." I tilted my head. "Then stop using my name on your bills." He flinched just slightly, and then they were gone. Joanna let out a long breath. "You handled that well." "It wasn't hard," I said, though my chest ached. "You just have to forget they ever meant anything." She looked at me with quiet understanding. "That's the hardest part." I nodded once, then turned to the window. The city outside looked unchanged. Traffic clouds lives continuing, but inside everything had shifted. The castle had fallen, and I was still standing. They called it betrayal. Whispers in court filings, half-voiced threats through lawyers. Ungrateful. Cold. Unforgivable. But what they never said out loud, what they couldn't admit, was that I'd only ever done what they taught me. Keep the receipts, know the numbers, protect your investments. Only this time, I was the one worth protecting. The view from my office in Boston looked out over the harbor, the morning light stretching across the water like melted silver. I stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching the ferries drift across the docks. Inside the space was everything I never thought I could afford. Clean lines, soft lighting, quiet elegance. No clutter, no noise, just breath. On the glass wall beside me, the words, "Balance Forward," gleamed in brushed steel. We'd opened quietly, Maya and I. Just the two of us at first, 2 laptops and too much caffeine. But word spread fast, financial wellness for women by women. No judgment, no jargon, just clarity, boundaries, and choice. Now we had a team of 8, a 6-month wait list, and Joanna Blake as our senior legal advisor. "You ready?" Maya asked, poking her head in. She was holding a small stack of folders and wearing the confident smile of someone who now slept 8 hours a night. Her scarf was burnt orange today, sharp and warm. She always matched the season. "Almost," I said, setting my mug down. The seminar was full. I could hear the gentle murmur of conversation down the hall as women found their seats, leafed through materials, adjusted their name tags. They'd come from across the state, some professionals, some retired, many just tired of carrying too much for too long. 15 minutes later, I stood in front of them. "Family doesn't give you purpose," I said, my voice steady. "You build your own. And if someone takes that from you, you have every right to take it back." No one clapped. Not yet. But heads nodded. Eyes met mine. I saw them. And maybe for the first time, they saw themselves. Afterward, I lingered. Maya handled questions. Joanna cornered a local legislator about closing a loophole in spousal asset laws. I returned to my office, kicked off my heels, and stretched my sore toes inside warm socks. There was a new envelope on my desk, anonymous, no return address. Inside a letter, "My son controls my bank account. He says I'm forgetful, but I'm not. He gets angry when I ask about money. I'm scared to leave. Can you help me?" I sat quietly with it for a moment. The handwriting trembled across the page, blue ink like breath held too long. I picked up the phone. "We've got you," I said when the call connected. "Let's begin." Later that evening, with the day finally behind me, I stepped onto the balcony outside my office. The autumn air was sharp against my cheeks, the kind that carried no lies. It didn't flatter. It didn't manipulate. It simply was. Down below, lights blinked on in apartment windows. Across the harbor, a tugboat moved steadily along the current. Maya joined me with 2 mugs of tea. "You did good today." "I didn't cry once," I said softly. She nudged me with her elbow. "That's called progress." We didn't talk about Gregory's firm, now dissolved after the press leaked internal records, or about Ethan, whose accounts were frozen pending audit, or Susan quietly living with a cousin in a Florida condo. They were pieces of a puzzle I no longer tried to solve. Let them whisper. Let them stew in silence. I had mine now, and it was finally beautifully mine. Some silences are empty, others are earned. As I stood on that Boston balcony, the wind in my hair and my name finally my own, I understood the difference. We don't owe loyalty to those who break us in the name of love. True family isn't built on guilt or obligation. It's built on mutual care, on listening, on choice. Sometimes reclaiming your peace means walking away from the noise you once called home. If this story stirred something in you, grief strength or recognition, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You're not alone, and your voice matters too.